For a long time, a particularly moving sequence from Sophia Loren's most acclaimed film was the highlight of her illustrious career. However, she has now admitted, at the age of 91, that it wasn't acting. What played out on television originated from a very real place, one that had been hidden for a very long time, along with memories that she had no intention of sharing. A script hiding a world of anguish. Finally, after keeping it hidden her whole life, Sophia is ready to disclose the truth. Join us. We explore the life of the Italian superstar and the moment, her love of acting, that changed her professional trajectory. Sophia Loren shot to fame after starring in the 1960 film Two Women. The trajectory of her career was altered by this film. Her gracefulness and attractiveness had already brought her fame prior to this. However, she left her dazzling roles behind and dove headfirst into something awful in Two Women. Although the plot of a mother and daughter's struggle for survival during World War II may have appeared straightforward at first, Sophia's performance revealed an unfiltered aspect of her acting that had previously gone unnoticed. On the other hand, she was embroiled in scandal that followed her about for a long time after this role gained her fame. The brutal, chaotic truth of battle was too much for Sophia to bear. She was a struggling mother who had to do all she could to shield her young kid from a dangerous environment where she had lost her home and had no money. She was asked to do more than just appear sad or cry for this role. It compelled her to delve into her innermost being and unleash feelings that appeared authentic. A horrific scene that evoked powerful feelings was one that Sophia, in her role as Sisera, had to confront. One scene depicts her character being cruelly exploited. The film's presentation of this scene was groundbreaking for its time. The camera continued to roll without pausing or fading. Normally, a scene like this would be cut from the movie due to the implications it would carry, but that wasn't the case here. Viewers were taken aback by the film. Some found it to be excessive. It was too accessible for some people. Whatever the case may be, word got around. Sophia brought her A game. On film, she experienced it firsthand. It was all too realistic. The agony on her face, the rigidity of her frame, the terror in her eyes. Her courage was lauded by some, but her extreme actions were criticized by others. They claimed that viewers of the period found the sequence to be overly provocative, sexual, and unpleasant. Not helping matters was the fact that she was already a symbol of all things desirable in society. It unsettled people to see someone with that kind of image brutally attacked. It went against their impression of her. Critics weren't limited to the media or the audience. The film was heavily censored in a number of nations. There were some scenes that were entirely eliminated. For a while, it was outright forbidden in several regions. Showing a famous actress in such a delicate scenario, according to certain leaders and moral watchdogs, was too much. Such controversial content can sway audiences in an unsavory direction, which was their biggest concern. No actress, particularly one so beloved, should ever bring such ferocity to screen, they said. In the meanwhile, that response fell squarely on Sophia's shoulders. Her goals in taking on the part were to develop as an actress, explore the suffering of women in wartime, and reveal a new aspect of herself. However, she encountered criticism in addition to praise. More and more people were staring at her. She was criticized for every action she took after that film. Many production companies were hesitant to put her in comparable parts. Those around her attempted to relegate her to the more delicate and beautiful persona they believed would cover her better. But the film's impact was undeniable, even in the face of the criticism. Undressed and undiluted, it exhibited what a female role could be. It highlighted the silent suffering that women frequently endured throughout wartime. And it freed Sophia from the confines she had been confined to. She demonstrated that her abilities extended beyond just posing for photos. She was capable of inhabiting complex parts and making audiences remember them long after the credits rolled. Prizes began to trickle in as word of the picture spread to more people. More conversation followed, though. For some, the film's depiction of sexual content was excessive. Actresses, particularly attractive ones, were not to crumble under the pressure of film. They were hoping they would amuse rather than annoy them. However, Sophia Loren had acted in a different way. Her example proved that genuine beauty isn't always a bed of roses. The amount of truth someone could carry was more important than their appearance. The debate never really went away for Sophia. Throughout her career, the scene with two ladies remained a constant. It remained a topic of conversation for a long time. Yet, as time went on, more and more people started to perceive it differently. What startled viewers at the time is now seen as a bold and powerful event in cinematic history. Other actresses were able to break through thanks to this daring decision. It proved that female actors didn't have to be stifled in any way to play physically demanding roles. No one should be surprised when Sophia Loren stepped into that role. But that is precisely what happened when she immersed herself fully in Cesar's character. A new level of candor entered the film industry with the scene that made waves. It aided in the dismantling of obstacles. Because of that, people started to perceive her differently. It also demonstrated that the truth has a way of emerging from the most unpleasant narratives. On the other hand, Sophia had to deal with scathing criticism more than once. Fighting for love was a constant struggle for her, a love that knows no limits. Carlo Pani met the young Italian actress Sophia Loren. He produced films at a far older age. Their love grew stronger over time, but they were unable to overcome a major obstacle. Pani was still legally bound to his first wife because divorce was not yet legal in Italy. There was no way for him to escape Italy. Therefore, they sought an exit. They went to Mexico in the end. In September 1957, Pani got a divorce and then married Sophia through a proxy at that location. They were represented by two attorneys. Their happiness quickly turned to sorrow after they were officially wedded. That union was rejected by Italy. A public warning was quickly issued by the Vatican. It stated that Pani was a bigamist and that Sophia was a concubine in that union. The fear of excommunication was dangled before them as they were branded as public sinners. The hit was devastating. Sophia expressed the fear that she might never return to her home. The Church's voice resounded strongly because it originated from the Vatican newspaper, L'Osservatore della Domenica. They endured public disgrace when they were tried according to canon law. A citizen of Italy subsequently brought legal action. Police accused Pani of bigamy. Concubine status was alleged for Sophia. In other regions of Italy, the populace turned against them. There was a call for her films to be boycotted by Catholic groups. Some people went so far as to say she should be erased from history. The pair was forcibly banished from society. Their only options were to flee to neighboring countries like France, Switzerland, or the US, where they could rent a property or move into a villa. It was impossible to see them in Italy together. They used aliases to avoid detection. It persisted for a long time. Still, they never wavered in their devotion to one another. Sophia was adamant on staying. Having a family was her goal, and she claimed she felt married. She could not stand by and watch as the scandal drove a wedge between them. She wanted both her partner and children. They continued after that. Even while he was in exile, Ponti continued to create art. Sophia was the star of his European and Hollywood flicks. This includes her Academy Award-winning performance in Pontiac's Two Women. They were married, but Italy did not acknowledge their union at the time. They did something bold in 1962 to get out of the bigamy accusations. They had the Mexican proxy marriage annulled. However, they were still unable to tie the knot in Italy due to the country's harsh divorce laws. A third nation with a formal divorce system was required. In 1965, Sophia, Ponte, and Ponte's first wife all became French citizens after relocating to France. After obtaining his second citizenship, Ponte was able to legally separate from his wife. Then, in a civil ceremony held in Sèvres on April 9, 1966, Ponte and Sophia were wed. Close to Paris, France, and, later, Italy, both recognized their marriage after that, thanks to changes in divorce legislation. They found security through that second marriage. Without fear of legal repercussions, they could openly raise a family as a married couple. Their 1968 and 1973 Geneva-born sons were born to them. In Paris, they established a life and maintained close relationships with Europe. Divorce became legal in Italy in 1970. The long-denied legitimacy of their marriage was at last acknowledged. The public's disapproval, however, did not immediately fade. Some felt Ponte was career-motivated or too old for Sophia. Some turned to the ethical implications, claiming that she had an affair with a married guy. However, there were also those who eventually came around. Those in favor of them brought up how strong their relationship was and how loyal they were to one another. Pontius publicly declared his faith in Sophia and his willingness to support her. As time went on, they were viewed as a team that had battled against unjust regulations. Although the legal ground for the Vatican's stance diminished with the advent of divorce legislation, the Church never officially lifted the earlier criticism. Though she was not a particularly practicing Catholic, Sophia experienced profound humiliation during her formative years. That was a period of overwhelming misery, she said. The Church and the law condemned her for loving, even though she had just risen from illegitimacy and poverty to celebrity. She spent her honeymoon sobbing instead of enjoying it. They were instrumental in getting divorce legalized in Italy, according to some. Even when they left the spotlight, Sophia never lost sight of what was truly important in her life, her family and her career. They remained together until his death in January 2007, despite whispers about Ponte's infidelity and her alleged relationships. Over the course of 50 years, they were married. Her unwavering dedication was well appreciated by moviegoers. She previously expressed her distaste for the idea of giving oneself up to a man. Their friendship endured through embarrassment, exile, court battles, and shame. Sophia and Carlo's story ultimately demonstrated how love can overcome obstacles like distance and legal constraints to bring people together. Their narrative stoked controversy over church power and civil rights while insisting on antiquated regulations. The public's disapproval subsided, and they lived to witness the legal and historical recognition of their marriage. They became a symbol of perseverance despite being stigmatized as sinners. Their unwavering commitment got them through the tough times, and the public couldn't get enough of their story. Curiously, there was a moment when everything almost came crashing down. Stuck in the thick of things. Thanks to Carlo Ponti, Sophia Loren had blossomed into a major star. She went to Spain to film her first American picture, The Pride and the Passion, with Cary Grant and Frank Sinatra, when she was just in her early 20s. Even though Ponti was still legally married and could not divorce at the time, she was secretly engaged to him. The third wife of Cary Grant, who was 30 years Sophia's senior, was in her 50s. He was an actor in the film. He underwent a transformation upon spotting Sophia on set. After work, they started spending time together, going for hikes in the hills, eating al fresco while listening to flamenco, and eventually giving into moments of laughter and gentle confession. His sincere pursuit intensified in tandem with their growing intimacy. He would daily send flowers. He spoke of shared laughing in his notes, which were full of optimism and gentle persistence. Sharing a goal, he envisioned a future alongside her. He continued to stress the idea daily. He took her out for a twilight stroll as filming came to a close. He gazed into her eyes as the light began to fade and asked her to be his wife. Later on, she said that she was rendered speechless by that incident. She was caught in the throes of love, but she couldn't make up her mind. The man who found her and shielded her, Ponte, inspired a sense of devotion in her. It was Ponte's home and language that she belonged to. Marrying Cary, she thought, would force her into a world where she didn't really fit. She required some time to reflect. There was a marked change following that evening of sunset. Sophia maintained a friendly but wary demeanor as Cary grew increasingly heated. He wanted to start a family with her, but she took advantage of her independence to pick her partner. Throughout her formative years, Ponte was a rock, a guide, and a protector. She felt more secure after he left. Belonged, on the other hand, to the glitzy, unpredictable world of Hollywood. Taking the chance of doing something she would come to regret was too great. Houseboat, the following film, quickly reunited them in America. Following the start of his affair with Sophia, Cary revised the script and cast Sophia in the starring part instead of his wife, Betsy Drake. Their rift widened as filming got underway in Washington. It became difficult to operate around the tense atmosphere, the director later remarked. Ponte also set up the Mexican proxy marriage at about the same time to get himself and Sophia married. Cary came back to set with a sad heart and a last bouquet of yellow roses on one of the last days of filming. He had a feeling she wouldn't say yes. As a symbol of her journey, Sophia took those roses with her on the plane home. As a public reminder of her choice, Ponte, who was envious and angered, hit her. She added afterwards that she felt sure she had made the correct decision because of that moment. She had been uncertain and young when she saw that reaction, but now she knew. Ponte took Sophia in after filming wrapped. Cary couldn't stop thinking about her. Their correspondence continued even after their intentions with her ended. He expressed his sorrow through poetic notations, looking for confirmation that she was content and even complimented her efforts. Years later, she opted to remain at home in Rome instead of attending the Oscar ceremony on the night she received her award for her breakthrough role in Two Women. Cary informed Ponte of the news by calling him first thing in the morning. In his heartfelt congratulations, he assured her that she had always been the finest. In subsequent public statements, she made it clear that he had never made a formal proposal to her while they were filming. That rumor was dismissed by her as impossible. According to her, he proposed to her after sunset on their last day on set in Spain, but she maintained he had never actually proposed while filming. She turned down his repeated proposals of marriage despite his intense feelings for her. Although Cary was charming, talented, and kind, she pondered that she would have had to uproot her life and leave her language and heritage if she had married him. She remained Cary's beloved forever. However, he maintained his graciousness when they were compelled to complete Houseboat together and when destiny prompted them to bid farewell. The encounter changed her life in numerous ways. It prompted Ponte to finally do what he had been putting off. Long after the fact, it provided her with a narrative. A sense of yearning, peril, and agency permeate that narrative. Two men, each promising her a different kind of future, trapped Sophia, a young woman. In Cary, she perceived a world of brightness and separation. Despite the obstacles, she could see Ponte as her home. She finally settled on a course of action. She wed Ponte not long after, and their marriage shaped the remainder of her life. She will always think of the man who proposed love to her at sunset, though. Their journeys took different turns, but that instant lingered in their minds. Memories of a love affair that may have gone elsewhere, letters, mementos, and flowers, were carefully maintained by her. During that entire ordeal, there was no spectacular public admission of guilt regarding the proposition or rejection. Until she brought it up again in her memoir, she kept quiet about it. However, Sophia's difficulties persisted after having accomplished all of that. A glimpse into the world of incarceration. Even before her incarceration, Sophia Loren was in hot water with the Italian tax authorities. Her share of the income tax was at issue in a case that arose in the 1970s. During a year when she made money from movies, she paid taxes at a certain rate, but the state said she should have paid more. This matter lingered in the courts for a long time. Despite the availability of a tax amnesty scheme, she maintained her position that she had accurately computed her return. She appealed the decision, but the authorities continued to insist she owed more. The dispute escalated into a protracted judicial battle that lasted for almost 40 years. She would eventually serve a brief prison sentence related to a previous incident, and the matter would be finally resolved in subsequent years. She was found guilty of tax evasion in 1980 by an Italian court for earnings from the 1960s and earlier. A 30-day jail sentence was her punishment for the conviction. She returned home a few years later to give herself into the authorities. Upon her return to Italy, she knowingly allowed herself to be arrested by the local police. Her mother, sister, and country were all things she longed to see again, she added. A lot of people took notice of her choice to just show up at the airport and stroll into arrest. Without delay, she landed. The cops took Sophia from the airport to a prison for female inmates close to Naples. She served 17 of the 30 days behind bars, just like any other prisoner. No matter how much she disagreed with the accusations, she felt obligated to do it. The problem, she explained, stemmed from a tax expert's, now deceased, oversight. She completed her sentence, adjusted to her new environment, made friends among her fellow inmates, and then walked out at the end of each day. Many came out to show their support for her when she was in prison. Outside the prison, admirers sung songs to express their support. From her jail window, she waved goodbye, kissed them, and enjoyed the moment with those who loved her. Even when incarcerated, she managed to win over the public's adoration, as demonstrated in that scene. Many individuals called in to argue that she should not be given special treatment, but the concept of a pardon by the country's president gained traction in the news. She was released from prison after 17 days and returned to her life outside of jail. Her brief stint in prison did not deter her. A strong woman, she picked herself up, dug in, and continued working. But the 1970s tax year court battle went on for a long time. She fought the tax authorities' claims that she owed additional money by filing multiple appeals over the years. She continued to follow the case even when she was abroad, living abroad for a while. In the meantime, her legal team remained dedicated and did not allow the lawsuit to be dropped. Her utilization of a tax amnesty program dating back to the 1980s for that 1 year was their main point of contention. That income should have been covered by the amnesty already if she had followed the laws correctly. Additional payments were required as the tax authority continued to challenge the interpretation. The case made its way to Italy's highest court after a circuitous path through lower and appellate courts. After nearly 4 decades of deliberation, the Supreme Court finally issued a ruling in 2013. She felt she had paid her fair share, and this supported her belief. The applicable amnesty did apply to that year's earnings under the statute that her advisors and she had relied on. According to the court's ruling, she was right to pay what she paid. With that verdict, the protracted tale came to a close. The final verdict established that she was no longer obligated and that the case could not be reopened. Reflecting on the entire ordeal, she had gone from dealing with a mistake that was caused by someone else to going to jail and then fighting a protracted legal campaign. She triumphantly confronted the penalties and emerged justified. Ultimately, she prevailed in court, ending the long-running disagreement. Thanks to the resolution, she was able to put the issue in the past and go forward with her life. A portion of her life that she would eventually abandon was molded by this entire incident. That having trust in the system and keeping at it can lead to hope was emphasized. She continued acting in films and TV shows throughout it all. Neither her life nor her reputation were tarnished by the tax scandal. On the contrary, she confronted the problem directly, demonstrating to onlookers how one may overcome insurmountable odds and emerge victorious. The last chapter ended in her favor when she rose to the occasion and faced the court's difficulties. Over a long period of time, the Supreme Court made a ruling. Instead of a tale of struggle, hers became a tale of triumph. Where did Sophia Loren stand before her stardom took over? We'll have to see. Through adversity to fame. The birth of Sophia Costanza Brigida Villani Ciccolone took place in Rome's Clinica Regina Margherita on September 20th, 1934. Romilda Villani, her mother, was a piano teacher by trade. She had ambitions of acting in her youth. Her father, Riccardo Ciccolone Murillo, was an engineer by training but never really put his degree to use. He was an employee of the National Railway for some time, but he didn't stay around long enough to start a family. He abandoned Romilda to raise their daughter alone when she declined his marriage proposal. Growing up, Sophia didn't have her father's backing. He was one of just 3 people she ever met. At the age of 5, again at the age of 17, and finally in 1976, just before he died. The hurt he caused her mother persisted even after she had forgiven him. In 1938, Romilda and her husband welcomed a second daughter, Maria. Still, Riccardo refused to claim Maria as his own. Even when Sophia achieved fame, the injustices done to her mother and sister remained fresh in her mind. In exchange for Maria's legal right to use the Ciccolone surname, she paid her father. At that point in time, Riccardo already had 2 sons from a previous relationship. 2 of Sophia's half-brothers are Giuliano and Giuseppe. In the little village of Pozzuoli, close to Naples, Sophia, her mother, and younger sister resided with their grandmother. During the war, life became much more difficult. The area was heavily bombarded by Allied forces during World War II due to its harbor and weapons complex. Shrapnel wounded Sophia's chin and left a scar when she hurried to a bomb bunker. Following that, they relocated to Naples, where they were welcomed by some distant relatives. They returned to Pozzuoli and began putting their lives back together once the war ended. Grandma Sophia didn't squander any time. She turned their living room into a little bar. She distilled cherry liquor in her kitchen and sold it to the neighbors. They had a booming business for a while since the American soldiers stationed nearby liked to hang out at their modest pub. She competed in her first beauty pageant on September 21st, 1949, the very next day after her 15th birthday. The event took place in Naples and was titled the Queen of the Sea. Sophia was escorted by her mother by train to the event, which was organized by the local newspaper. Grandma had sewed her a pageant gown from vintage taffeta curtains. In the end, she won a consolation prize since she stood out from the other contestants. She was honored with the title of princess at the pageant. She received 23,000 lire, a rail ticket to Rome, and the crown as well. She lived a life transformed by that prize. With the money from the train ticket, she and her mother headed to Rome in search of employment at Cinecittà, the epicenter of Italy's film industry. They wasted no time. They wasted little time gathering their meager possessions and set out for the trail. Sophia was hell-bent on breaking into the film industry. She entered the Miss Italia beauty pageant in 1950 at the tender age of 15, which was around the same time. At that time, she was known as Sophia Lazzaro. She was the second contestant from the Lazio area to enter. She reached the final 3 out of a large pool of stunning contestants. Even though she was not named Miss Main Crown, she was named Miss Elegance. A greater thing was about to begin with that title. She went back to that pageant in 2001, at the height of her fame and success, to serve as chairman of the jury for its 61st edition. At the 71st Miss Italia pageant in 2010, she bestowed the crown upon the newly crowned queen. Her trip came full circle at this point. Her early years were marked by hardship and anguish. They persevered as a unit despite the lack of resources and assistance her family faced. Effort and survival molded each step along the road. She did not achieve her success by chance. It was a result of persevering through adversity and clinging on to the hope that better days were ahead. Despite the despair she felt, her unwavering faith propelled her to leave a war-torn town and perform on stages all throughout Italy. That's how Sophia Loren transformed from Sophia Ciccolone. In addition to clicking the next video that appears on your screen, you can also like and subscribe to this video if you liked it. Thanks for watching.